One, two.
Hey! Jump in. Jump in.
Welcome to the Video and Vinyl Club. I'm Emmy Wildwood. I am a musician, a producer, a art director, and an artist. And this is my incredible Honey Barn co-host, Erin Mars.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Mars. I'm a writer, director, musician, actor, jack of all trades, here with the lovely and talented and super duper superhero of a human being, Emmy Wildwood.
Ooh,
Always a pleasure to be here with you, Emmy, my
it's a
honey
pleasure.
barn.
Honey Barn. Before we started, Erin was trying to call me a honey bun, but it came out Honey Barn, and so now that's our new thing, Honey
That's our new
Barn.
thing. We're
Yep.
gonna make it a trend. Trending.
Trent
So
hashtag Honey Barn.
hashtag honey barn.
We'll put it up on social media. It'll be like, if you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly. If you know, you know.
This is our part one about the iconic cult film director John Waters
John Waters.
and film Polyester.
John Waters is considered to be one of the greatest directors of our time. Some people might argue against that notion, but I think it's very true. He's very stylistic. You probably are familiar with his work, his film Hairspray, which then turned into a musical, so he earned a Tony for that, and his film Cry Baby, and
Serial Mom.
oh right, and Serial Mom, which is absolutely hilarious. If you've never seen it, you got to check it out. And he's made a ton of other movies. He was from and is from the Maryland area where he films most of his movies. And he has been a really important figure in the world of the melodrama film genre and the women's film category, particularly satirizing, the work of Douglas Sirk. So Douglas Sirk, for people who don't know, he was a German film director, best known for his work on Hollywood melodramas of the 1950s. Melodramas like The Magnificent Obsession and All That Heaven Allows and Written on the Wind and A Time to Love and Die. Basically, films that sound like romance novels.
After we watched this movie last night, Erin was like, I loved it. It was like a romance novel. And oddly, so I didn't know it was satirizing these like melodramas from the 50s, but that
Yeah.
makes sense. And it reminded me of when I was a kid and every summer I did vaudeville summer camp. So it reminded
Ooh.
me of that like campy vaudeville theater with like the hero and the bad guy and the comedy relief with a definite like soap opera twist, a definite telenovela kind of vibe, and a definite romance novel. You said it exactly. And then it's got like this serious layer of grime involved.
Oh, totally. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so fun in that if you know it's a joke, you're like laughing the whole time. If you come in and you think this is meant to be, a sincere take on a story, you're going to be incredibly confused and probably think this is the worst movie you've ever seen. So it is satire, which is really not necessarily like the easiest thing to nail, I think, because sometimes it can be something that doesn't resonate with an audience.
Tell our listeners what a satire is.
When something's satirical, it's basically holding up human vices and follies for ridicule or scorn. So it's, you know, written with sarcasm, which is used to expose and discredit a vice or a folly. And this film, Polyester, has many vices that are throughout the film, and we should jump into it so we can kind of talk about it. But that's really what a satire is, right?
Yeah. It's like making fun of these sort of platitudes, right? So like middle class family and all the things they think are important and sort of making fun of those things, highlighting it and making fun of it, turning it on its head, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Should we do it? Let's jump
Let's do
in
it. Let's
to
jump in.
polyester. So, polyester came out in 1981. Now, a few things were happening in the early 80s, right? We've got Reagan as president. We've got this moment of just more that's happening in the United States. We've got the war on drugs is starting to come about. And what's really cool is you have a song called Polyester that plays in the beginning of this film, and the lyrics are by Debbie Harry, who is the singer um, and one of the writers in Blondie. So, really cool little nod. She's actually been in some of John Waters' films, but we can talk about her another time. Anyway, so couple of cool things that happen in this film. At the very beginning, there's this moment where this scientist talks about Odorama, which is where film goers are going to be given these like scratch and sniff cards, and a number will appear on the screen. And when you see that number, you scratch the card and then you smell the card, and you're smelling what the film is smelling. So part of the storyline throughout it, this main character, Francine, she has this really great sense of smell, is one of the characteristics that they give her. And they talk about that a bunch of times. And so she's smelling a lot of things. She's like, all over the place. Smell. And she'll smell socks. She's smelling roses, just all these things. And so when moviegoers went to what they would be viewing on screen with special scratch and sniff cards, they actually got that. And it was a stylistic tribute to William Castle, whose films were typically featured with attention grabbing gimmicks. Because when we had movie theaters everywhere and everybody was going to the movies, and it was this big thing, in the 50s, they were all trying to like figure out what else can we do? What else can we do? And, Odorama was one of the things, which I think actually some theaters still do that.
So that was really a thing,
Yeah.
Odorama.
Hmm.
That's hilarious. And it's a very interesting way for it to be interactive, to really sort of like pull the audience in and have them participate more in the movie and like another gimmick to sort of see like I
Yes.
wonder what they're gonna do for you for this movie, like that kind of thing.
Also, just note that this was actually one of the earliest films that was put out by New Line Cinema.
Huh.
New Line Cinema, as people probably are familiar with it, has put out like a ton of stuff. Some famous films that New Line Cinema has put out were A Nightmare on Elm Street, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street
Wow.
3, The
What?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies after that. They put out Shine, which got a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Picture in 1997. So they're a studio people know about. Yeah, and they do TV and stuff. But anyway, so this is one of their earlier pictures. So they decided, okay, cool, let's put this out. And they were like new at the time ish. So anyway, let's get to the story. Here's the basic plot. We're looking at the early 80s. Housewife Francine Fishpaw watches her upper middle class family's life crumble in their suburban Baltimore home. Elmer, the name of her husband, he runs an adult movie theater, and he wears these crazy polyester suits that are kind of out of, they're just hilarious and very
Like car
stylistic.
car salesman
Yeah,
vibes.
like total car sale, like sleazy. The guy could not look sleazier, act
Sleazy.
sleazier. He's just a pile of slime. So that's her husband.
Yeah.
And we see that, she's at her house and she's, getting dressed, ready for the day, whatever. And there's these picketers outside her home, and they've got these signs, and they're like, no more smut, and saying all this stuff, just circling in front of her house. Elmer comes home and she's like, I've been dealing with these people all day. They harass me, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that was great. Let's call the news. We need to get free publicity. And she's just devastated by this. She doesn't want to be associated with it, but she is. And the news crew shows up. Elmer takes it as a moment to talk about his theater as she gets more and more embarrassed and goes outside and is like, please leave me alone. And let's just also note that Francine Fishpaw is played by the one and only Divine. Now, Divine had starred in a few of John Waters' films, and we'll talk about her more later. But anyway, so it's just this wonderful over the top performance constantly from her. The character is always just like on the brink of tears, either like in a good way or a bad way. And whatever happens, it's just, oh, how could you do that? Oh, like the whole time, which is just really funny.
I know we're talking about Francine Fishpaw later, but and Divine, but I wanted you to just imagine as Erin is telling you more about the plot, Francine Fishpaw, played by Divine, is a robust, curvaceous woman who is very, very tall and takes up a lot of the screen. So this is not like a dainty little church going character. This is a robust, juicy woman.
Yes, which is wonderful. Like I
Wonderful.
just totally wonderful.
Oh yeah.
So we see her, she's in the house, she's got this thing with the news cameras everywhere, and now we're meeting her kids. So we've got her son who is named Dexter. He's a total delinquent. He looks like a, punk rocker kind of kid. He's got short, kind of spiky hair. He's looking dirty. He's whatever. He's sniffing glue all the time. He's got this sexual perversion for women's feet. He's like he's got this notebook and he's cut out pictures of women's feet and pasted them in there. And he just like looks at them and gets so excited, like, just, he just comes off as this like gross kind of teenager, whatever. And then she has this daughter named Lulu, who is clearly spoiled and very promiscuous to the point where every time Lulu walks in the room, it's like she can't stop dancing. She's like, oh, Mom, Mom, the boys give me money at school to see me dance. Ah. And she's like, you're a tart, Lulu.
Yeah.
So she's got these two kids. They're clearly out of control. She also has this mother who is a cocaine addict, and she's a very class conscious snob. Like the mother comes off when we first meet her, she's just very class conscious. She
Yeah.
says something to Francine about, her friends coming over, and she's like, your friend used to be a maid. How can you associate with her? And just
Right.
gives her all this crap. And then she leaves, even though the mother has come in, goes immediately to Francine's purse, pulls out her cash, steals her money, and is like, you said you were going to take me shopping, but okay, forget it. I'm not hanging out with you because you're hanging out with your best friend who used to be a maid. It's like, all right, you're kind
Who's
of,
rich now, by the
who's
way? Who's,
very rich.
yeah,
Yes.
Cuddles. Her friend Cuddles is so awesome that a family that she has worked for has left her all of their money. And I would argue that Cuddles is the hero of this story.
Yes. And so Cuddles is played by Edith Massey, who was an American actress and singer, and she was best known, obviously, for being in a bunch of these different John Waters films, but she was part of what was called the Dreamlanders, which was John Waters' stable of like his regular cast and crew. So what
Love.
what he would do, and I love this because I feel like as a filmmaker, this is what I aspire to be able to do as well, is you use your same cast. Then every time you're making a film with them, everybody knows the gist. You're going to be able to make things more fun. It's easier. And so he was incorporating these people again and again and again. And Edith was one of those cast members. So she's also in a bunch of his other films. So, but she's got a very interesting look and very fun. Okay, so that's her friend. So Francine's best friend is named Cuddles. Her mother, LaRue, is like, ugh, gross. How could you be hanging out with her, your former house cleaner? And as she comes, the mother leaves. And Francine, the evening before, has found out her husband is having an affair. She has found a receipt for a hotel in his coat and is pretty sure he's cheating on her to the point where, Cuddles is over and they're in the kitchen sharing a cake, which she's cut in half. So they're each eating a half of the cake. And the secretary, who her husband is having an affair with, calls her and says, oh, Francine, Elmer won't be coming home tonight. He has to go away on business. And does this like stupid little laugh. And the secretary's name is Sandra. Sandra has her hair in braids, similar to like a Bo Derek look when Bo Derek was on the
Yeah.
cover of Sports Illustrated in that bikini. So Sandra's got that going on. She's got like these braids. She's like a skinny white girl, crazy braids with like beads
with
on the end.
highly appropriated hairdo. Yeah.
Yes, highly. And she's having this whole affair with Elmer, and they just like laugh about Francine the whole time. Like, oh my gosh, she's so fat. She's this, she's that. Just kind of like horrible stuff. So Francine tells this to her friend Cuddles, who is now very wealthy, has a limo driver who's driving her around, who she can summon with the click of like a beeper almost. She's like beep 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 beep. She like pushes this little thing, and then he gets a notification. He's like, oh, it's like he gets another buzz, and he just knows he's supposed to go to her. So
He's at her beck and call.
he is totally at her beck and call. So Cuddles beeps her limo driver. The limo driver comes. She's like, I'm gonna find out if he's having an affair for you, Francine. And she and her limo driver go to hang out in the parking lot of this motel waiting for Elmer and Sandra so they can ambush them. Meanwhile, we have Lulu has gone out on a date with who Francine had presumed was this really nice boy who shows up at the house. He's got flowers. And he's like, I'm going to take her to the library. It's so nice meeting you. I will be really very respectful. And, of course, Lulu comes downstairs and she's like, hey, let's go. Just acting all crazy. And he's like, whoa, okay. And he takes her in a car. And Francine says, okay, as long as she, keep her away from Bobo. She's not allowed to see him. He's a bad news guy. Keep her away from him. And he's like, okay, I will, Mrs. Fishpaw. Don't worry. Of course, they get in the car 2 minutes into this drive. Lulu's being totally rude to him. Bobo and his friend, they have parked their car sideways. They circumvent Lulu and this guy. They pull her out of the car, and she's like, Bobo, yay! And she runs over to Bobo, and him and his friend scare this nice boy away. He runs away, and she goes out in the town. She has a crazy time with Bobo. Bobo, and I thought this was kind of fun, just like a little note about Bobo. He's a skinny guy, looks again kind of like punk, gross kind of. And I'm not saying when I'm saying punk and gross, I want everybody to know I love punk rock. I'm a former punk rocker. Okay. I'm not
Former.
saying, well, I am a punk rocker. Let's be real. Um, and I'm not saying, guys who dress in a punk rock way are gross, like not at all. But this guy, he's just like made to look sleazy. Like
Oh
his
yeah,
hair, they like
they're
make him to look just gross
yeah, the most grimy, slimy, greasy hair there is, and they're like constantly huffing drugs.
constantly.
It's not like even smoking a little pot, nothing like that. It's like they are huffing from brown bags this whole freaking movie.
Yes, yes. What I thought was really funny about his character is he actually gets beaten up by women several times. So when he's out with his friend and he's got Lulu in the car, they have this scene where they have like a broom and they're driving down the street and they just like hit people on the butt or just like hit people with the broom. And it works for a few times until he hits this one lady who's waiting for the bus and she's like, oh, hell no. And the bus
Yeah.
comes and she just like throws the bus driver out of the bus, gets into the bus, chases Bobo's car down, cuts off Bobo's car, pulls Bobo out of the car, and just beats him up. And it's absolutely hilarious because he gets beaten up by women again and again who just kind of go over and they're like, not on my watch, and just like, smack him around. So I thought that was just a really funny thing that they do with that character, which I really enjoyed. So, Cuddles, she finds out that this affair has been happening. She tells Francine, and she's just devastated, and she confronts him at the motel and she demands a divorce. And he's like, woohoo, sounds great. And she's really sad. She falls into alcoholism and depression, and her kids aren't really helping with what's going on. Lulu comes home and she's like, I'm pregnant from Bobo. And she's like, oh my goodness, how could this happen? And then 2 seconds later, Lulu's like, and I'm going to have an abortion. And she's like, no, how we can raise this child, no. And meanwhile, Dexter, who has been running around as the Baltimore foot stomper, is finally apprehended as he stomps on a woman's foot in a supermarket, and he is brought to jail. So
I gotta tell you, Dexter is my favorite character. Like I'm upset. Like he's hilarious to me. Dexter is the son. He is all messed up on angel dust the whole time, and he gets all hyped up on drugs, waiting outside this grocery store for like
yeah,
old ladies to come out with their groceries, and he starts sweating and sweating and sweating and getting all excited. And as soon as he sees a footstep out the door, he
yeah,
stomps the living crap out of it. And the ladies are like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And this is
yeah,
when I started getting into the movie. I started thinking it was funny because all of a
yeah.
sudden he's on the news. Poor Francine's son is now like the local like harasser of old ladies, and he's the like rogue foot stomper of the town that they're
Oh
trying
my
to
gosh.
catch, which is
And it's
hilarious.
it's so funny. It's
Yeah.
really just because it's so over the top,
Yeah.
especially that part waiting outside of the supermarket.
Yeah.
And the shots of the shoes, I have to say, I was like, wow, there's some pretty cute shoes in the 80s. We see a lot of shoe shots,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, which was kind of cute. So, so he gets arrested. So now everything's kind of just falling apart. Lulu then tries to go on her own. She's like, I need money for a cab. And Francine, has fallen into this alcoholism. She can't get out of bed. And she's like, Lulu, don't get an abortion. I'll raise the child. And she's like, get off of me, you drunk. And she, takes his money and she leaves. And Francine is just, beside herself. Lulu ends up going to the abortion clinic, but some anti-abortion picketers, or let's call them anti-choice,
Yeah.
people come in and they harass her. And so she leaves and she runs home. And now she's scared to go to the abortion clinic to get an abortion. So she starts throwing herself into the furniture to try to give herself a miscarriage. Francine sees this and she calls the Catholic Home for Unwed Mothers. And they come, these nuns, jump in a car, drive quickly. They get to the house, they run in, they're like, we'll save you. And they grab her and they take Lulu they put her in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
She goes to this Catholic nunnery place for unwed moms. There's this great shot of she's surrounded by all these other like pregnant teenage girls, and they're all just miserable, like whining and all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, as that's all happening and Francine is out with Cuddles, her mom has once again stopped by her house and she's looking for money or looking for whatever. And she finds this letter that says, oh, the divorce is finalized and Francine's going to get $2,000 a month and the house. And she calls who we assume is her husband, who says, like, and says, time to cash in on our cash cow. She like $2,000 and the house, blah, blah, blah. Then the doorbell rings and there's these two kids dressed like trick-or-treaters. And I say kids, meaning teenagers. And it's Bobo and his friend. And she's like, oh, I don't have any candy. And they're like, oh, well, if you don't have any candy, I guess that means since you're not giving us a treat, it's time for tricks. And they like push her through and they come into the house and they're like wrecking things. And they try to shoot the mother. They try to shoot LaRue, but she gets the gun and she shoots Bobo and she kills him. And
Yeah.
this is as Lulu has now escaped the mother's home. She walks in and she sees Bobo's body and she's just so distraught. She opens the oven and puts her head inside. So
Mm.
as Francine comes home, she faints after she sees her daughter's suicide attempt. She's pulled her out of the oven. And even the dog, who actually hates Francine, has also hung himself from the refrigerator. The dog's name is Bonkers. Bonkers has also killed himself.
Poor
And
bonkers.
based on a suicide note left by the near the dog's dangling body.
Yeah.
So anyway, Francine's life, starts to look up as we see Dexter gets out of his rehabilitation. He's released from jail and he's uh, been rehabilitated. And he's like, Mom, I'm so sorry for what I did. And he walks in and he sees she's like, an alcoholic. She's got this drinking problem. And he's like, You can get rid of it, Mom. I got off the angel dust. You can do it, Mom. You don't need to drink anymore. And she's like, you're right, Dexter. And she, pours the wine down the sink.
Mhm.
Then Lulu, who has now suffered from a miscarriage because of her suicide attempt, she has now become an artistic flower child who embraces macrame. And she is doing her macrame, and Dexter is now a painter, and he's clean, and they're both clean, and they've basically turned into these like really nice kids, is what's kind of implied. Francine has now stopped drinking, and she confronts her mother, and she finds a new romance with a man named Todd Tomorrow. So Todd Tomorrow, very handsome, more handsome than her first husband, let's be honest, than Elmer. He drives this super sporty, beautiful car. And throughout the film, in different moments, when she's been in the car in the limo with Cuddles, his car will drive up next to her window, and they kind of look at each other and make eyes. And she's like, oh, oh. And so later they actually meet, and they fall in love, and they get married, and Todd and LaRue, her mom, actually secretly are doing cocaine together and have become romantically involved, and they're conspiring to embezzle her divorce settlement and
Ugh.
drive her insane and take her children and put them into prostitution. And as all this comes out, right? And this is pretty much the whole movie, guys. So like
Yeah. It
we're
never
skip
stops. It
we're
never
skipping a
stops.
lot of stuff here. So like there's so much more in this film, and you definitely need to watch this film.
Hmm.
Anyway, as this is all happening, and this is the climax of the whole thing, we see Elmer and his girlfriend Sandra trying to break into the house to murder Francine. But what happens is Dexter and Lulu circumvent that. And Sandra's got this gun. Dexter stomps on her foot, bringing back the foot stomping that he loves to do.
He
But
uses it for good.
yeah, he uses it for good. He does that. And then she accidentally shoots Elmer. And Lulu uses her macrame then to strangle Sandra. So they effectively kill Elmer and Sandra. And then all this is happening as Todd and LaRue, again, that's Francine's mom, are trying to call like a mental institution to come and pick her up. Cuddles arrives with her chauffeur slash now fiance, and she effectively runs over LaRue and Todd with her car, killing them. And we conclude with this happy ending with Cuddles and Heinz, the limo driver, and Francine and her children, as all of the people who were making their lives difficult have now died. So they've been eliminated from the plot.
That's the whole thing, right?
That's the whole movie. And I think like if you are somebody who you've seen Hairspray and you've seen Cry Baby and you thought those movies were fun, you really need to see Polyester. It's
Yeah.
one of his earlier works, and I think it's something that it's great when you're into a certain director or to even just learn more about certain directors by seeing some of their work because it's so stylistic
Yes.
and it's just really fun to kind of get in there.
Yeah. So many things occurred to me. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier. Like this is major camp, major satire. Last night I texted Erin, I've watched the first quarter of this movie and it's my least favorite John Waters movie I've ever seen. And she was like, "Oh no." And I was like, "It's fine. I'll keep watching." So it's true that it didn't, I mean, it immediately occurred to me that it was satire because of the Odorama bit in the beginning. Like,
Hmm.
I just didn't see where that was connecting
Hmm.
to to what was happening in the first quarter of the movie. But when they talk about the Odorama thing, this like fake scientist, he pulls out the chart and he's like, "I think we can all agree some things just plain stink." Anyways, as the movie goes on, you start seeing that, as Erin said, that Francine has this sense of smell, strong sense of smell, but more than anything, she's sniffing things the whole time. It's extremely comedic. So like when her sort of like her instinct. So like as the kids are doing drugs, she can sort of smell it from the outside. And she makes these faces where she's like stinking, smelling something that just really stinks. And then when bad guys are outside her door, she can start smelling things. When her husband's cheating on her, she can smell it in the room. When her mother's around, she can smell her mother. And she just makes these like ridiculous faces. Every time something happens, when her daughter's head is in the oven, she can smell the gas. It's like, and so some things just plain stink. You start seeing the tie-in that basically, like, Francine's life stinks, really
Hmm.
stinks. And Francine is just taking it the whole time. Poor
Hmm.
Francine. Francine is doing her best. And it just, you know, she lives in a situation, in a town, in a time period where really bad things that are happening to her are very shameful. And we feel really bad for Francine the whole time. And also, right when you think Francine is about to overcome, more bad things happen to
Oh
Francine.
my
So
gosh.
Francine is just getting
Yeah.
bonked over the head the whole time. So
Oh yeah.
it occurs to me that this is another thing in movies. It's like taking it as far as you can go. We talk about this all the time. Certain directors leave you kind of like floored because they fit so much into the plot. They fit so much action stuff into the plot where it's like you aren't left feeling like they missed anything. But also when they do this, you're also like, poor Francine, you're left feeling emotionally
I know.
impacted by
Yeah.
all the things that happened to Francine.
Yeah.
And you're rooting for her and you just really want things to turn around for her.
Hmm.
And so when they do finally turn around for her, you're like, thank God. And you
Thank
feel
God.
this,
But
yeah,
also there's that feeling
empathy.
of like, when's the other shoe gonna fall?
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
this can't, there's no way. Because suddenly it's gone from so bad to like so good. You're, at least I was like, okay,
yeah.
there's gonna be something's gonna happen at some point. You just know it. You just kind of,
Right.
it has to, right?
And finally, at the end, when things turn around for Francine, meaning everyone's dead that's harassing her the entire time, she starts spraying this like odorizing room spray, like, things finally are starting to smell good again. So I thought that was such a weird metaphor. Like,
Yeah.
all I could think of the whole time is, and just from the little I know from John Waters,
Yes.
he must have really associated like bad smells with bad times in his life. We talk about how the smell of somebody can be so sentimental, but also bad smells can also trigger really bad memories for you. We always often think of like the smell of your grandmother's perfume or like smelling like baby powder or something, but
Hmm.
also like low tide can really trigger some bad memories or like,
Yeah. Or the smell
gar
of rum that you overdrank when you were 19 and you threw up
right.
all night.
Right.
Some
Or
some things just
drugs,
never.
people who never take out their garbage and all these things. So I thought about that was interesting. Like for him, maybe that's a very specific nostalgia or bad memory generator for John Waters. And
Totally.
then, yeah. And then the other thing I thought was really, he is from Maryland, right? And he's from Baltimore. He writes a lot of stories. Like
Hmm.
Hairspray takes place in Baltimore.
Hmm.
The other movie we were talking about, Flamingos, which is his most risque line
Yeah,
pushing, boundary
and
pushing.
totally. And when we're even talking about that, just so the audience kind of has a little perspective, Polyester was the first film that John Waters put out there that actually got an R rating. His other films, we're talking about Pink Flamingos, Multiple Maniacs, Female Trouble, they all had ratings that were like rated X
Wow.
or the equivalent of like no rating, NC-17. Like these were not films that were allowed to play in certain theaters because they were just seen as like way too out there. So he was seen as like a
Scandalous.
really, and he is a very transgressive cult filmmaker in a lot of ways. And it wasn't until he made Polyester and it finally got an R rating. So it was able to then show in more cinemas where mainstream audiences could go and see his work that he
Hmm.
started to tiptoe into that realm, you know? And then it's like after that, there was
Hmm.
Hairspray is obviously very mainstream. That got him,
Hmm.
you know, all this stuff. Crybaby, 1990 comes Crybaby. Serial Mom, 1994. Pecker, 1998. So now he's starting to move more into a realm that's more accessible for audiences to see his work.
Right. Right.
Um,
That being said,
yeah.
it's funny you say that, it was his first R rating because another thing I said to Aaron this morning was this feels like it's shot like a porn. Now, I'm not like a porn expert before anyone out there says is like, "Whoa, Emily knows." No, I'm talking about when you're in watching movies and they shows sort of like porny scenes, like 80s kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie has this sort of like grime aspect to it, like something you would imagine being in the 70s of like a seedy porny theater downtown or
But see, you know what I think is really interesting though about it getting an
yeah,
R rating? We
yeah.
never see boobs.
No.
We never see, you know, nudity really, other than one guy we see kind of the back of his butt a little bit. There's
Yeah.
no swears. There's
Yeah.
no excessive blood. There's not excessive violence, even though,
No.
you know, somebody gets shot, but it's like they get shot and they fall against a wall. It's not like we're seeing stabbings and stuff. It's because,
Like Divine is playing a church going lady. And
hmm
there are things that I can see are shocking about it. I was going to bring this up. We are used to seeing drag and transgender people more and more as New Yorkers in the time that we grew up. Something that we're used to seeing now
hmm
but it's because John Waters started doing it. So as I was watching the movie, I kind of had to keep telling myself, like, imagine this is like the first time that you've seen, you know, this kind of bodacious woman in a leading role in a movie. Like, imagine how shocking that might have been because it was not a thing that was happening yet. I mean, Mrs. Doubtfire, this is the kind of stuff, this campy kind of, you know, John Waters kind of normalized that for us. So for me watching it, I was like, this is something I've seen before. Also, I kept seeing Larry, Moe, and Curly in a lot of the comedy here.
yes.
A lot of this old timey, bonk on the head, silly faces. I mean, you can't see me now, but for those of you who watch on YouTube, a lot of this, like these kinds of like
hmm
silly faces and this reactionary comedy. I could see the genius in weaving these two things together. I could see the genius. It's a combination. Like, how do you not enjoy Larry, Moe, and Curly, right? But when you weave in all these other things that maybe um, America finds shocking, you can see how both things can be fun together.
He was a
Well,
drag queen. As to his gender identity, Waters said, people think Divine, they always think wrong, was trans. Divine never dressed as a woman except when he was working. He had no desire to be a woman. He didn't want to pass as a woman. He wanted to pass as a monster. He thought up to scare hippies. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be Godzilla. Well, he wanted to be Elizabeth Taylor and Godzilla put together. But
also,
I think that brings in actually something that's more subversive for the time in a way, which is why would somebody who is a man find it fun to dress up as a woman? And how scary that is for people who, you know, we're dealing with at that point in time, right? Like people are like, there's a war on drugs, and there's obviously a lot of homophobia. You know, AIDS is happening. And the idea of just people doing drag, which is an art form that's been around for a very long time, I think for some people did feel really scary if you're in like the
mhm,
mainstream
right,
world, right? Because it was a
right.
time when it's like if a boy likes the color pink, his father's like, you can't like pink, you know? You like
Yeah.
that? You can't like that. It's like there's no ability to have any level of emotion as a man, which I think we're still dealing with the repercussions of those types of feelings
Yes,
in general.
it's also just really contrarian. It's like, I'm going to show you something you're not used to seeing and hope it shocks you. Period. Like, isn't it funny to see people being shocked and scared? Like, what's the big when it's not really scary? It's just, dressing up or um it's just kind of like another performance art.
Totally.
And
Absolutely.
and drag is performance art and it has evolved and developed and become a whole different thing. And that drag stuff was happening majorly underground in New York, majorly underground in more major cities. There is something about his connection to Maryland and to Baltimore that is very specific to these films that makes me like them even more because Baltimore is a city that has struggled and struggled, once very, very booming, eventually just crashed to bits. The industry there was, I believe, what was it?
Second leading port of entry for immigrants to the United States, and it was a major manufacturing center. And
Yeah.
after a
So,
decline in heavy industry and restructuring of the rail industry, Baltimore shifted to a service-oriented economy.
and it crashed and it became one of the most poor rundown cities there was. And when nobody has any money, people become desperate and crime happens. And
Yep, like the show The
every
Wire talks all about Baltimore.
that's
It's all based in
exactly right.
Baltimore. Yep.
Yes. And that great show. Wire's a
Hmm.
great show. Love that show.
Hmm.
Anyways, so there's something obviously where John Waters really needs to tell these stories. It's a very inside perspective, one that we don't often get of the sort of like funny side of all these like sort of tragic things happening. Because even in Hairspray, and it sounds like in Pink Flamingos, that he's showing this tragic side of Baltimore. Hairspray happens all in Baltimore, and it's during the time of segregation, and it's a story about integrating Black and white people into the same to being able to dance with each other on television. And
Yeah,
this
totally.
moment, yeah, and so it's this moment where, he's telling stories about these moments where Baltimore is shifting and
Hmm.
the sort of underbelly of what's happening. And this seems to be a time where, he's showing that it affected all classes. This sort of crime and the drugs and the stuff happening in Baltimore was sort of affecting all classes there. And it was funny, because often
Yeah.
people want to think of like a higher class or a richer class as classier, and
Yeah.
it's not always. There's all this sort of like behind the scenes, tacky shit happening, and
Yep.
that being rich doesn't necessarily make you a good person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the hero in this story was a former maid. It's like
Yes. Yes.
so it's really about like, are you a good person or not a good person?
Yeah, and
Uh,
almost in a way that if you are have a more simplistic outlook on the world, you're going to be happier. It's
yeah,
easier for you to quickly figure out the difference between right and wrong because you're
that's
not as complicated, which I
right.
think Cuddle's character is very simple. So great film. I'm sure people are familiar with Divine from Hairspray, and if you're into the work of John Waters, but Divine also put out music. We are going to, Emmy and I were talking about kind of touching into John Waters going a little bit deeper, and we're going to have an upcoming episode on his film Pink Flamingos. So if you are someone who wants to watch the film before we discuss it, so that you feel like you're have an insider's info on what we're talking about, we will be watching Pink Flamingos this month. We're going to start putting up a list on our Instagram and on our other social
Platforms.
stuff
Yes.
platforms
Yes.
of the films that we will be watching each month so that if you like to watch along, you can. We are going to say that is always subject to change because sometimes something new comes out and we're like, oh, we want to watch this, or maybe something that had been available via streaming services is taken down. We're trying to make this so that people can watch the films with as much ease as possible.
Yes.
And so I think this has been a really good
Yeah, but
episode.
so tell me your vinyl record rating, baby.
Yeah, baby. I'm gonna say 8.
8.
I think this film, and that's really high. And part of me wants to
Yeah,
be
it is
like
high.
7 because I feel like, but I have to say 8 because I think that it is, to me, so stylized in a specific way. And I just loved it. And I love the fact that there's just this touch with the Odorama stuff. You know, when people went to the theater to see this, they've received, we talked about this earlier, like a scratch and sniff card that was numbered
Mm-hmm.
as the things went.
Yep.
Similar to when people would get like 3D glasses, right? It's
Yeah.
the same deal. It's like,
Yeah.
put on your 3D glasses, the monster's going to fly around the tower. It's
Yeah.
like, take out your sniff card, you're going to read it. And the sense of what were on the card, which if you buy the DVD, you have a chance of getting a card inside that has the
Really?
cents.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah. And so the 10 cents that they put on the scratch and sniff card, it's roses, flatulence, model airplane glue, pizza, gasoline, skunk, natural gas, new car smell, dirty shoes, and air freshener.
Wow.
And I feel like when you have something that's so conceptual and you're taking it into
It's art.
its
That's
art.
it's like an art installation. It's an experiential art situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more artistic. It's kind of like when you go to an art museum and they, give you a guide to follow along and you're hearing it and then all of a sudden you're inside the story.
Yeah.
Um, it makes you feel like you're more there inside the experiencing it with them and therefore more impactful and therefore memorable, more memorable. And that's what you want a movie to be. You want to make a memory. That's the whole idea. Learn
Yeah.
something, tell a story. I mean, it's also pretty like genius to like implant a smell in someone's brain that helps implant a memory. It makes the whole thing kind of like
Totally.
stay with you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so fun.
I would
It's
have said
just,
the first half of the movie for me was like a 7, and then by the end of it I was going 9. So
yeah.
I'm gonna give it like an 8 too.
Yeah.
Because I just it if you put in the time and you really wait, you see the payoff. And that is just like you just see the work that went into it.
Oh my
Just the
God. Yeah.
details. Like,
Yes.
wow. I at first I was just sort of feeling like this is like stupid. Like it because it is. But it's slapstick. And then by the end of it, you're like, man, the time, the detail that he put into every thinking this through, like, wow. I couldn't believe the story was completed. I mean, it goes a million miles an hour
Oh God.
and
Yeah.
there's a
Hmm.
million subplots occurring. And if you can wrap up all those subplots in a way that's
Yeah.
satisfying to the watcher, that's like you're pulling off
Yeah. I
a
mean,
huge effort
this
there.
is this is like a forerunner to a Jerry Springer episode, but it's actually a film. And I think it's just so fun to watch. And it
Yes, that's a
actually,
great way of putting it, by the way.
yeah. And it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I believe that.
It's fun, and I
Yeah.
think it's one of those works that when you watch something like this and then you watch current films, you're going to be able to see little
Oh,
nods
yeah.
that people do to other directors, to other, pieces of work because there's stuff that happens in this that, it's not completely groundbreaking, but it's like funny. They're like
Yeah.
making fun of stuff that's just it's so over the top.
Anyways, Erin, I thought that was
Mhm.
really, really smart on your part to bring up these movies. I think of Hairspray. I've seen Hairspray about 5 billion times. It was one of my favorite movies as a little kid, I'm telling you,
Mhm.
and not the musical. I just saw the musical recently. It's nothing like the movie. It's close, but
Mhm.
not really.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. So this is a learning experience for me. I had no idea the camp, the grime, the X-rated side. I
Oh
really,
yeah.
yeah, because I think of Hairspray as like sort of wholesome
Yeah.
in a weird way. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's, because it is high school kids and
Anyways, great episode. Please follow us on our all our socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Leave us comments on what you think and please leave us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening to podcasts. It really helps us out and we just want to keep doing this for you. So leave us reviews and stars so we can.
yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
One, two.